Have you ever heard the quote, before diagnosing yourself with depression or low self-esteem or anxiety, first make sure that you are not, in fact, just surrounded by jerks? I paraphrase that a little bit because the original quote has some not so YouTube friendly words in it. But honestly, as a therapist and someone who specializes with chronic pain and chronic illness, I see this all the time. This quote, I couldn't even find an author for it. I feel like it's been attributed to so many different people. But this quote really underscores this idea that our mental and emotional state can be very heavily influenced by our environment and the people we interact with. Toxic relationships and negative social influences can significantly impact our well-being. It can make us feel depressed and literally make us sick. So in today's video, I wanted to share the mental health impacts and the physical health impacts of toxic relationships. So for those of you who are new here, my name is Teresa. I am a mental health therapist. I am a yoga teacher, and I specialize in chronic pain, chronic illness, and trauma. I really felt called to make this video because between my clients, all of the trainings that I've done, doing work in the limbic system and chronic pain and chronic healing world, I see this issue all the time. We need to really take stock and ask ourselves, are the relationships, are the people around us healthy, or are they making us feel worse? I have worked with so many people who have tried every tool, every trend, every course, every therapy that exists, and they're not getting better. And when you really dig deep with them and you go beyond the surface level and you get into actual mental health counseling, you start to see that a lot of their issues are being driven by toxic people around them. And I think this is so important because we don't talk about this a lot. I do delve into polyvagal theory a lot with healing, which talks about how there's more than just fight or flight, rest and digest mode. We have to be safe in polyvagal states. We have to be safe in co-regulation, that our nervous system is healthiest when we are somewhere in the middle of being regulated enough to be in relation with others, but relaxed enough to feel safe with others. But often polyvagal theory doesn't get into enough detail on toxic relationships or screening people to say, before you start using all these tools and you try to make these changes, make sure that you're around people who actually are supportive of your healing and aren't keeping you stuck in a negative cycle yourself. So, to start, I want to define toxic relationships. These are not just relationships with some unhealthy traits. No one is perfect, but these are characterized by patterns of behavior that are emotionally and physically damaging and have profound negative impacts on our health. The emotional strain and chronic stress associated with a toxic relationship goes very deep. And so you're going to see patterns of abusive behaviors, of talking you down, of not supporting your healing, actually dragging you down with them. And we want to talk about the different ways that toxic relationships can actually make you sick, drawing on scientific evidence and data to really drive this home. So if you've been doing all of the healing, all of the tools, and you are not getting better, let's check in and make sure that we're not just surrounded by negative people who are hindering our healing. I want to start by just talking about chronic exposure to stress. It's one of the most immediate mental health consequences of toxic relationships, and studies have shown that persistent oxidative stress can lead to anxiety disorders. The American Psychological Association has noted that chronic stress can alter brain structure and function, particularly in areas associated with memory and emotion like the hippocampus and amygdala. If you've watched any of my other brain retraining videos, if not, go watch them after this. We know that the hippocampus and amygdala are some of the key players in brain retraining, chronic pain, and chronic illness responses. So if chronic stress is leading to changing the structure and function of these parts of our brain, this makes so much sense that it's setting us up for more issues with anxiety, mood disorders, and underlying health conditions. Depression is another outcome of toxic relationships. Emotional abuse, constant criticism, manipulation erode self-esteem. it takes away this internal locus of control that is so important for us to be healthy, and it moves it to this external locus of control. We have feelings of hopelessness. We have feelings that we're not good enough. We have feelings that we have to rely on others for validation rather than finding it in ourselves. And research published in the Journal of Affective Disorders found that individuals in abusive relationships were at a significantly higher risk of developing actual clinical depression. And the psychological toll of feeling devalued and powerless can lead to very severe depressive episodes. We also see toxic relationships leading to post-traumatic stress disorder. And this can arise from experiencing or witnessing traumatic events, including domestic violence. Post-traumatic stress disorder also deeply affects our limbic and our nervous system and can definitely put a huge obstacle when we are trying to heal any sort of illness. Let's shift to the physical health impacts. The link between chronic stress and immune function is well documented. Chronic stress, which is a hallmark of toxic relationships, suppresses our immune system, and it makes us more vulnerable to infections and illnesses. There was a study that was in the Journal of Psychosomatic Medicine, and it found that chronic stressors like ongoing relationship conflict were associated with increased susceptibility to colds and other illnesses, viral, bacterial illnesses. And you could argue that this could translate over to environmental illnesses, to pain perception, to a lot of the things that bring people to brain retraining and limbic system healing in the first place. We also look at cardiovascular health. The American Heart Association highlights that chronic stress contributes to hypertension, high blood pressure, and increases the risk of heart disease and stroke. So toxic relationships, which are a constant source of stress, can actually have a direct adverse effect on your cardiovascular health. There was a study done that individuals in high-stress relationships had a higher incidence of heart attacks and other cardiovascular events. We also see this playing out with gastrointestinal problems. The gut-brain axis, which is a bidirectional communication pathway between our gut and our brain. Our neurotransmitters, some of them are made in our gut, like our serotonin. It plays a crucial role in digestive health. And so chronic stress disrupts some of these pathways and leads to conditions like digestive issues, stomach pain, reflux, and stress 100% can exacerbate these symptoms. They've done a number of studies showing that there is this psychosomatic component to things like IBS and reflux and gastroparesis. Again, it's not saying that it's all in your head, but that stress and emotional abuse can make many of these symptoms much worse. Sleep is often one of the things that is greatly affected by toxic relationships. You think about people that are up all night talking on the phone to someone who's toxic, or they're not sleeping because they're overthinking an argument that they had. And stress and anxiety associated with conflict can lead to just insomnia or just poor sleep quality, nightmares, flashbacks. According to the National Sleep Foundation, chronic stress disrupts our sleep patterns, and it leads over time to a buildup of long-term sleep deprivation, which makes health problems worse. Emotional stress can also physically manifest as chronic pain. Some conditions like fibromyalgia and tension headaches and migraines have links with prolonged stress. So a study from Pain Research and Management found that individuals experiencing high levels of stress reported more intense and frequent pain symptoms. Again, I know that chronic pain has real physical causes, but there is a difference that I have seen time and time again with my clients, whether they have spinal stenosis, fibromyalgia, trigeminal neuralgia, neuropathy, whatever their pain condition is, osteoarthritis, rheumatoid arthritis. There's a huge difference on clients that look almost identical in their symptoms and their diagnoses. The ones that have positive social supports, positive supportive family members, pets, lower levels of stress, the ability to practice self-care, versus the ones with toxic abusive relationships, people gaslighting them, no social supports, no pets, whatever the case may be. There is a big emotional component to the perception of pain, the window of tolerance for pain, the inflammation and oxidative stress that either make our pain worse or better. And I don't want to forget looking at behavioral and lifestyle impacts. So, people in toxic relationships are more likely to resort to unhealthy coping mechanisms. So, this might include substance abuse, overeating, self harm. Their abusive or emotionally manipulative partners may not let them have other outside healthy friends. They might not allow them to do activities that feel good for them. They might make fun of them when they try a new healing routine, or even just the flexibility that you or myself might have to get up and do our brain retraining rounds and be kind of goofy with it, or go out and laugh with our friends, or spend time in nature, or do some crazy yoga breath work. If someone's berating you for that, or making fun of you for that, or isn't supporting you and giving you time and space to do that, like, hey, I'll watch the kids so you can go do that yoga thing that you like to do, all of these are going to lead to suppressing our own needs and relying more on unhealthy coping mechanisms. When we are in toxic relationships, we see an emotional drain that leads to the neglect of self-care routines. So again, whether this is feeling hopeless, feeling worthless because someone is constantly giving you that messaging, and then that manifests with poor diet, lack of exercise, inadequate sleep, or whether literally someone is not letting you do those things. These are all things we have to really be aware of. And I know for some of you, you may be watching this and thinking, oh my gosh, like, there's really people out there that would hinder and sabotage someone's healing like that. And it's sad to think about it, but the answer is yes. And sometimes you don't realize that it's actually happening until you're able to talk to someone about it and seeking some support. And so I want to say that therapy and counseling are invaluable. And I really do deeply think, even if you feel like there's an issue within your relationship, do not make couples counseling or family counseling your first line of defense. Get your own individual therapist. I have seen a trend going around on some of the therapy TikToks and Instagrams recently, and it's so true, which is if you go to couples therapy with a narcissist, with an abuser, with a sociopath tendency kind of person, they are going to take everything you're sharing and they are going to be so manipulative and so charming in therapy, they're going to go right back home and use that against you. And you might not even realize that you're being gaslit in these couples therapy sessions. So seek support, but seek it one-on-one first. Explain your situation to someone who is safe, who is confidential, who can give you resources. Using cognitive behavior therapy has been shown to be effective in treating anxiety and depression, especially from relationship stress, but it also helps you to sort out how much of this is maybe something clinical going on with me where I have, old trauma, or I have depression or anxiety or neurotransmitter issues, and how much of this is this third-party therapist telling me, like, no, something's really going on in your relationships that is not helping. And this trauma, this emotional neglect or abuse is a big part of your problem, rather than maybe having been labeled as just depressed or anxious based on a 5-minute doctor's appointment where they didn't know the full picture. Another big part of healing is establishing boundaries. Learning to set and maintain healthy boundaries is so crucial for protecting your mental and physical health, for being able to say no, being able to walk away, preventing further harm and escalation, and giving you back a sense of control and safety. There's a great book called Stop Walking on Eggshells. It's actually written for people dealing with partners or family members with borderline personality disorder, but I think the book itself has such amazing boundary setting skills. It can be useful for anyone setting boundaries for the first time. I think there was also a recent book someone was telling me about, I think it's just called Boundary, and it also goes more into detail on this. And then engaging in regular self-care, exercise, mindfulness, hobbies, creativity, time in nature, seeing your friends, really cultivating positive, healthy relationships to offset the effect of the negative ones. It gives you a sense of security and happiness. And the more that you're with positive people or doing activities that make you feel good about yourself, I'm a big fan of animal-assisted therapy, horse therapy, just being around positive people, positive situations, even a yoga class or going out and doing something more structured. The more that you're around people who are there to lift you up, the more you can start to see the patterns and relationships in your life that are holding you back. So in conclusion, I just think it's super important to open up this conversation. Toxic relationships can have far-reaching, very severe impacts on our mental and physical health. So we want to make sure that if you are struggling to heal, if you are dealing with immune issues, cardio issues, digestive, sleep, pain, stress, PTSD, anxiety, if you're doing everything right and you're not healing, address your relationships. Look around, look at your boundaries, look at how you feel with certain people. Are people holding you back from your healing? Are you getting the support you need when you're trying something new? Or are you being berated or pushed down or made to feel insecure about yourself? Addressing and healing from toxic relationships is going to require support, boundaries, self-care, and establishing new positive, supportive relationships. So hopefully this can open up some people's mindset today of looking at recognizing the signs of toxic relationships and its impact on our mental and physical health. Even if you have already gotten out of a toxic relationship and you're not really sure why you're not healing, have you thoroughly addressed the trauma and potentially the PTSD or the residual depression or anxiety or self-esteem issues from that toxic relationship so that you can clear that barrier to your current healing regimen? So I invite you to speak out in the comments if you have any questions about this, or if you want to share your experience. And if this is something that is interesting to you, if you'd like to see more topics on this, let me know. Please like and subscribe if you want to see more content like this. And thank you so much for your time. And I hope you have a wonderful, amazing day where you feel so confident in yourself and your ability to heal.